The opinions expressed here are those of the Larry and Charlie Show and do not necessarily represent those of KJ's Place, its owners, or its employees. Caution, you're about to enter the Naked Truth Zone and with no apologies.
Live from KJ's Place in Kenner, Louisiana, we've got the Larry and Charlie Show. We need points to be a 0, but shit, we're doing the best we can.
Here we go. Hello, everybody. Our guest tonight is local ESPN radio talk show host, Gus Kattengell, on 100.3 FM.
That's it.
ESPN, from noon to 3. We're excited to have you, Gus, because you're probably the first person we've had on here that can actually talk.
That'd be a bad thing.
Oh, I got it. Joe was on.
I was going to say,
okay.
May want to go with that aspect.
Yeah, I think we'll do with that.
He can also sing a lot better than me as well. He will definitely know that. For sure.
Yes.
I've tried.
Well, Gus, we usually kind of cut up on politics, but tonight we're going to change it. We're going to bring in more sports with a little politics. If that's okay.
Sure.
You know, the last 14 months from the beginning of the COVID pandemic through now, plus the social justice movement and the riots and all that other stuff, that's had a lot of effect on Major League Sports, literally all of them.
Yeah.
How do you see that working out in the consequences of the last year?
It's been very interesting to sort of see it sort of evolve. I would probably use that phrase in terms of, in the past, probably one of the most famous phrases, right, you guys would probably get, or even we would get in the show, if you did express something political during something in a sporting event, it would be, hey, keep the politics out of it and you want to do sports. Right. Well, what happens then, which we've all seen, if the participants in that sport then decide that they are going to speak out on something, tell you how they feel or something, and what we've seen evolve is power. We've seen the athletes understand and realize they have power, and that power comes in a handful of different scenarios and ways, right? Organizations realizing that hey, just like any business, do we stand with our employees, right, or our athletes, or risk being part of that problem here as well, right? And I guess you could understand it from this aspect of it. You invest so much, right? Whether it's a basketball team, a football team, a college team, you're investing a ton of money and time and resources in those athletes, right, in your program, in your brand. It probably is smart to make sure they are happy or not. But it all starts, I think the genesis of it is understanding why they're feeling and saying that way. Because at first you probably can sit there and say, hey, well, why are they feeling this way? It's just one guy feeling this, or it's just a group of guys. But if they're legitimately affected by it, bothered by it, saying, hey, we don't feel we should be playing by it, then what you saw was organizations come to their backing and also understand that. And you go back to when, at the movement of a lot of the social unrest that was happening, the owners of certain ball clubs coming out and standing arm in arm with them to show solidarity, in that it wasn't just a player feeling this way, it was an organization feeling this way. You saw if there was a mass movement on something that happened, whether it was a riot, a shooting, or something, you saw, for the first time that I can ever remember, on teams' official web pages, social media pages, whether it's the color black of blacking out and going dark, putting a message. You saw, what was it, the Baltimore Ravens or others, literally putting a video together of athletes on behalf of something that happened to someone. You've never seen that before. So it wasn't just, hey, that athlete right there feels that way. No, it was the Saints. It was the Pelicans. It was the NFL. It was the NBA. It was, as you saw, college football teams going up and down campuses, being led by their head football coach, and how their universities handle that or not then became an issue. You saw businesses come out and do that way. So it's interesting because it wasn't just athletics. It was everything encompassing it. And so, yeah, I would say from when it first started last summer to now, it's completely changed how you cover it, in that you may talk about it, you may have mentioned it, it might have been a story, whereas in a year's time, you could spend the entire show talking about it. You almost had to on a lot of aspects of it, because if games were going to be canceled, or if one of the top players in the league, like Kyrie Irving, says, I don't feel like we should be playing, or in college football, like, why was Ed Ogeron not walking with his team? We saw Nick Saban. I mean, it became an issue on how they were interacting with one another, and just how strong that message sort of is too.
But another thing I saw before that, though, before all this activism entered sports, I saw high ratings. You don't see as high ratings now, because sports is supposed to be an escape, isn't it?
It is. It is to an extent, but at the same time, I think it's something, again, even on our aspect of it, in trying to deal with it or understand it better, which is what I think is the best way to sort of look at all this, is, again, we can say it's sports, we can say you want to escape it, but if the people playing it don't view it that way and don't want to see it that way, well, they're the ones playing it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I can absolutely do what you're saying and shut it off, right? I mean, before this past summer, a lot of it was with the anthem and Colin Kaepernick, and do you take a knee, do you not take a knee? We saw what happened with Drew and the team,
that was
and all of that.
ridiculous.
But you saw all of that happen, and again, how do you, from my standpoint in looking at it and how you cover it and seeing it, is to try to understand it, because we got a ton of opinions on it, but, understanding who was coming from where, and then more importantly, just kind of talking about it.
You mentioned power, okay, and I agree with you. There is power involved in this, but I think my question is, the power they have, is it given to them by the fan base, or is it given, or are they doing it to get with the power over the media?
Well, I wouldn't even say it's really over the media. I'd say power comes from a handful of areas, but let's specifically say the top three, because you're right in one aspect of it, and maybe not even just activism, but power absolutely comes from the fan base. And the power comes from, you start the high school level to the collegiate level to the professional levels. We speak about these athletes, we look at these athletes, and we talk about these athletes depending on if it's somebody you care for, your team, your organization. I mean, whether it's 5-star, we build athletics into an almost unrealistic sense of state, really, to begin it, right? I mean, if someone can play an athlete, or this school wins this many games, or this coach does this, we almost elevate them to a higher state of anybody else in any other avenue in life, which is kind of, so we're giving them that power, right? In terms of, let's just take, like LSU on a Saturday night, 100,000, you have RVs that cost 200 plus. People have no qualms about it, from companies, buying suites and spending $250 here because they want to be part of Saturday night. Well, those people, depending on how they spend, feel that they should have a little more power in making sure who he recruits and how he gets in. If he only has 8 wins, why are we not getting 10? We got Joe to come on over, and he's supposed to be the best quarterback on. So power then all of a sudden goes to a lot of different areas to that. So yes, I think we help give that power. At the same time, they are the ones that we watch. And so there is that power in that.
The consequences of the last year has been demonstrated in lower ratings across the board, fan apathy for the most part. And so as much as these players, there are some that are genuinely passionate about it, and then I feel there's also some that feel they have to be.
I mean, you're going to have that now.
Yeah, I know.
But
at the same time, the consequences have been really negative for all their sports. When the Super Bowl this year, if I remember correctly, because I'm old, I don't remember shit. But I remember, like they said, the Super Bowl ratings were incredibly low this year, and that was a good Super Bowl game. I mean, you had Tom Brady and the kid.
I've never had the situation before when I'm sitting there on a Sunday night and I'm watching a rerun of women's college softball. And I'm thinking, why am I sitting here watching women's college softball? It's not just because they have great asses. That's not the only reason. That may be a big part of it. You know, don't judge me. Don't judge me. These women, they're talented, and there's less politics in it, and that's the thing.
Right.
So if you haven't seen any reruns of women's college softball, check that out, Gus.
I think one thing that's going to be interesting to me is how we'll eventually quantify what we've seen the last year, specifically to your point, because you can go back and look at it however you feel about it. There was brushback, with the kneeling incidents and things of that nature, to where years later, though, you look at it and, I mean, it probably wasn't as bad as it was, but I will say we did get phone calls about that. And
that's my next question.
I had people.
You've been the last year talking to the fans on a daily basis. What are the fans? What kind of feedback have you been getting from the fan base when it comes to this kind of stuff?
Again, I think a lot of it is when you look at, you use the word power, right? So athletes have and exert power when they realize that they are the attraction. In terms of you come to see them play, they're the ones that put the butts in seats. The way fans have power is monetarily, supporting advertisers. Advertisers also, and their money, dictate how much power organizations have, right? And we've seen instances when the Kaepernick thing first started, you saw leagues say, hey, look, whether advertisers are going to pull money or they're not going to be it, so they sort of went to it.
Right.
And then, remember, keep this in mind, guys, the commissioner for the NFL was incredibly,
The Fuhrer. Goodell.
This is what we're doing, you're doing this.
Right.
3-4 years later, within this past year, basically stopped just short of a public apology, right? And he said that Colin was right and all. So, again, though, where does that pressure come? Because what I've seen change was maybe what you saw at the very beginning, advertisers or fans not doing that. There were a dip in ratings, you could see it, to where all of a sudden, though, that social stance changed because the popularity of that changed and there was more people doing that. And it was on 24 hours news networks, cable news, it was whatever. So it was very weird because to me, I saw the pendulum sort of swing. You did see commercial activism or people say they were going to not support this or not do that, and then the leagues sort of had power. But then you had what's happened the last year. Whereas if you're not behind it, you're in trouble. Like if you don't come out as an organization and say you support the athletes and you support the causes they're doing, you're not going to be a part of that. To where the head of the leagues are behind it, the organizations are behind it, ownerships are saying they're behind it. You're seeing executives and positions being created amongst organizations, whether it's the Pelicans, the Saints locally or nationally, in charge of diversity, in charge of understanding community relations. Folks, what we saw 2 weeks ago, we saw Cam Jordan, was it last week? Have a press conference with the mayor and the police, superintendent.
What do you get, 120 grand?
Right, but also to work this is an athlete, and that's what I'm saying. 4 or 5 years ago, to our point, how we started this conversation, would we have seen an athlete be involved in that much in politics, to where literally he's holding a press conference at City Hall saying, I'm going to help police understand what's going on in our community. It's drastically changed behind it, and I think people view it too as well.
I guess the balancing act is that when you look at the sport, every sport has a different fan base.
Sure.
Like football to me has always been, the basic average 9 to 5 working Joe has been the fan base for the NFL. So guys like Charlie and I, we would go on a Sunday because number one is we would have a good time. We rooted for the Saints, and when it was over, we partied.
You rooted for New England.
I did. No.
Over here and try and jump on the bandwagon just because we have a phenomenal season.
I'm a Bostonian, born and raised. Yes, I do, but I also do I also follow local teams, and I become fans because when in Rome, do what Romans do, right? I mean, that's fair. But do I root? Here's my rule. I root for the Patriots if they need the game. I root for the Saints if they need the game.
Right.
If it don't matter, I root for the offense when they play together.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's that simple. So I can't lose. I mean, last year, not this year, but the year before, we were so close to having a Patriots Saints Super Bowl.
You read some lips, you deflate some balls, and you get somewhere with things. You know, it's the way of the world, Larry.
Well, that's
And I
because
believe
Tom
that's
Brady
okay.
had
If you
Tom
want,
Brady
I'll take
had
a stand right here.
No, wait a
I'll
minute.
knee on this issue if I have to.
You have to understand. Tom Brady has a set of balls, and sometimes you got to deflate them just so he can run.
Guess I got over that. That's right.
I can't hate on a man that's ring his hand is so heavy with Super Bowl rings and I lifted off the table.
Look, quite
It's hard to
honestly,
hate to something. It's what I do.
what he did last year was pretty incredible.
That was it, wasn't it?
It was.
It was. Because,
it was.
let's face
We're
it.
talking about power.
Let's face it, the first 2 months, they were subpar.
I tell you what, it's interesting because I've actually looked at this year and what the Saints could possibly sort of be, and I've used them as an example of they got better as the season went along. I think the Saints mid-schedule on will kind of get a sense to see what they may be because of that. But, you talk about power. It was interesting when the schedule came out last week. You saw him tweet when they're going to Foxborough and play the Patriots. It's like bringing your high school friends to meet your college friends. Like, wow. So that was interesting.
Yeah, it's that's going to be an interesting week.
Sure.
But we still haven't heard. He had significant surgery on this off season,
Yeah, it'll be fine.
and who knows?
Right.
I mean, let's face it. He's old, and that's relative to me. No, but relative to football, yes.
He's super fucking human. I'm saying, I hate the guy, but I can't talk shit about him. He's superhuman. He'll be fine. He'll go to 2 more Super Bowls before he retires.
I wouldn't.
And I can hold a grudge. Like, I don't even shop at Home Depot because it's owned by the owner of the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
I would hold a grudge, but I just can't hate this freaking dude, you know?
Brand loyalty, baby.
Difficult,
Love it.
man. I'll go out of my way to go to Lowe's, I swear to God. That's it.
I guess. Where do we go from here? I mean, I look at it this way: is that I did like the Super Bowl this year was less social justice driven and more patriotic. It almost like we're going back to proud to be American.
Yeah.
Do you think that trend will continue?
I would say, and again, that's why I say this, almost calendar year or more. What's interesting is sort of look at this, and we will, is going to take some time to kind of look at it, right? You talked about ratings. How much of that has to be with COVID? COVID is this massive thing that's going to hang over everybody and everything. Let's just be honest,
it's here
right?
forever, whether we want to admit
how it
or not.
affected businesses. The fact that we're in here, I was telling you guys before we started, I haven't been in a bar. I mean, in a while. I was just excited that this past week, and I went to Walmart for my groceries. I didn't have to wear a mask. I'm like, yes, get vaccinated.
You still have those people looking at you with the side eye.
No, I hear you, but I mean that's the thing, though. It's just so we have had something that's never haven't experienced. Right? I mean, I read about the plague and all this other stuff growing up in school and stuff, but we have never had a situation where literally I would have ever thought in my life the world shut down.
No,
not just
that's the first
battery,
That's the first time in history.
Right. Nations, the world was told to stay at home and sit in. So businesses lost money. And look, in the short amount of time, and I say short because when you look at a timeline, you look at the lineage of it, it's not an entire length of time, but it felt like forever, right? From us not being able to go stay home for 2 weeks. Then that turned into, well, can you work? And then you're working, but you're working from home. And then you add a whole bunch of different elements. Like we talked about earlier before the show, my kid's just 4.
Yeah.
But I know plenty of other people that have kids that are school age that go to school. Well, it's affecting them. It affects how you do it. My wife will tell me flat out she works better not at home. I'm okay. I'm with him. But again, he was 2 to 3. Mama. You're trying to do that. And so on your day-to-day basic, everything is right. There's no COVID. The Saints are winning. Boston's winning. There's no whatever that upsets you. You can't wait to watch your sports. You still have days where you can't wait for Friday, right? You can't wait for your cold one.
Right.
So now you add something that's never happened before that absolutely affects you financially, emotionally, and mentally. And then on top of that, then you add trying to do some sort of sense of normalcy and still make money, still watch sports like you can, even though there's no stands. I mean, fans in the stands, and there's no this and there's no that, and you're trying to get everything. Businesses are still trying to make their money. Organizations are still trying to do that. Athletes are trying to perform in an area. Thank you. Where they haven't had anything like that in a while, and you don't know how to sort of do it and train and go to games. And one of the things I noticed this year in doing Tulane, I was excited to sort of see just how it was, because we had read about it, all the different protocols that were going to happen. Well, I traveled with the women's basketball team. For me to do that, I had to do the COVID protocols, which was testing every other day. If we stayed at home, if it was on the road, it was that day. So some days 5 out of 7 tests, some weeks 6 out of 7, some out of 3. They did it great by the time I got to it in October, November, where you would go into Wilson Center. It's there. You grab the little Q-tip. You do yourself for 10 seconds. You put it in the vial. You go off. I mean, it's maybe 30 seconds. At first, when they started doing all that in the summer, so you can have summer practice, you can have all of that. People back on campus, it was a lot more painstaking. You didn't have the process and stuff like that. So, but seeing how it changed our travel, you don't leave the hotel. That's college. You look at the NBA where you cannot leave.
They were in a
you
bubble,
cannot
right?
go in. Right. So it does it does affect you. So I'm interested to see how much of the ratings is it political fatigue, how much of it is, quite honestly, you get out of it, and I'm just tired.
Right,
and I want to not even deal with any of that stuff.
Right.
And then when you do turn on, it could be a handful of different circumstances that you want, and then all of a sudden here comes the game, and you want to see the game, and maybe you're just not into it right now. Maybe you lost your job. Families broke up. There were a lot of divorces. I mean, I know a couple of friends that went through stuff. So there are a lot of different elements, I think, that sort of affected all of that. Your kids in school, people missed out on graduations, people missed out on trips. I mean, the littlest things sometimes grew to bigger, right? 10-year anniversaries, weddings, 40th birthdays, can't go anywhere and do it. People get down, and next thing you know, there's depression, there's monetary and all that stuff. So, I mean, what maybe doesn't affect you in the past, I think maybe affects you more over this. To the point that I'm only bringing this up and kind of elaborating on this, that I can already tell in our calls, I can already tell in our analysis from draft, we're back to almost sort of being the cynical, this guy's a bum, even though no one's ever watched video of him. They're convinced this guy's a terrible draft pick, or this guy's absolutely the second coming of this. We're all general managers when it comes to the Pelicans, and David Griffin, Eric Bledsoe's terrible. I mean, it's like, I'm starting to get a sense of feel that people are more like that, but I don't think it's coincidentally that we're opening up more different things. We're back to as close to normal as we've been in a while. So I do think that's going to be interesting. Now, if the ratings this year are back down again, we'll see. I think a lot of it also has to do with not being able to go to games. If you can't go to games, it's hard for you to sort of be in that.
Definitely changed people's minds.
Absolutely.
Like and even when you're watching on TV and you're seeing cardboard cutouts of people and shit like that, you're like, man, this is terrible. I mean, I just want to get back to, like, I know we're way past this, but I would go back in time right now. I'd go back, I'd take Hank Williams singing, and I know demographics have changed and all, but I'd go back to Hank Williams doing the opening for the football show, and I would go back. I want to see Janet Jackson's nipple again. I want to go back. And
you can Google it.
I have a couple times. We don't talk about that.
Okay, that's fine. Incognito window.
Minimize.
No, man, it's like,
Gus, now you're understanding why we need points to be a 0.
I don't know if you're criticizing me or Janet Jackson's nipple.
No, you brought me back to
said us.
school.
Why we?
Negative integers or something. I didn't realize we were going to go back into mathematics. No, but you bring up a good point too. It's just I think we're all eager.
Everybody wants
to
life.
get back to it. Like I do too. I mean, my dad, LSU. I grew up as a kid going to LSU games, everything, just hearing the the snare. Right before the band starts coming and walking out, I want to feel that again. I want to go into the dome and actually, smell the dome nachos and the cheese and then feel.
What was it like going in there with an empty dome and a football?
It's odd.
It had to be strange as hell, right?
It echoes, and just even, it was interesting because when I was calling women's basketball games, which obviously it's not the same crowd, but we did a men's game at Wichita, and it was towards the end of the season. It was the first time, this in February. It was the first time I'd heard a crowd. And, like, legit. And it was interesting. I called a Tulane baseball game the Wednesday that everything shut down, that the NBA shut down. Rudy Gobert tested positive. I called the game on Tuesday, started seeing a lot of reports, and we were being told, not to say it on air, it's not official, but that this weekend's upcoming games were probably going to be fanless. And I was like, Jesus, how can you play a sporting event fanless? Like, it was so boggling in my mind. I'm like, it's a big game. Like, Tulane baseball.
Like, that'll never happen, right?
No, they were
never
doing great. They lost like 2 games. You're like, it was nuts. I'm texting Todd. Todd's calling the game that night in Sacramento, Graffinini. And like, this is nuts. So we're calling the game. It was around 7 o'clock when the game was about to start. And they called it off right during warm-ups. And I'm looking at it on my laptop, and the phone starts going off, and I start seeing on Twitter, the Jazz Thunder game has been called off. He's tested positive, and I'm like, uh-oh. And I just knew, I'm like, here it comes.
Right.
Because, again, no one knew anything about this.
Right.
So you would expect the reaction of what you saw, and it's like, you shutting it down.
Yeah.
You're shutting it down.
Yeah,
so I'm texting, like, here we go, and then it was just odd because I remember this feeling too of I'm looking around like, did I touch a door handle? And all of a sudden I start getting the EBGBs. I don't know why I'm getting the EBGBs, but because no one knew anything about it. And so, yeah, it would be nice to just get in that. But I was there when we had fans, and then calling games this season where there was absolutely nobody on there, and I'm wearing face shields and N95 masks in the airport and on the plane just to get to our games. And so that's why I'm saying it's going to be an interesting aspect of that, where I think athletes, just like we, as spectators or people that covered him, felt a certain way.
Yeah.
And things affected you more than, like, hey, I'm not just number 15 on this team. I'm away from my family. A friend of mine that works at a major university up in Indiana, they had a rule. When the semester started to the semester ended, you can't go anywhere. So that meant sports information people couldn't go for Thanksgiving or Christmas to see their family, much less the athletes. So all of that, I think, it affects you when you can't socialize, you can't date, you can't do all those different things, much less see your family.
The young people suicide rate was.
But I think that's what I'm saying. I think that's what you saw too. Athletes all of a sudden start saying, you know what? This is from now on. This is how I'm going to be treated. So you saw a lot of people start talking about should you pay athletes or not, which is a different show that we can get into. And you saw, I think, athletes get a lot more introspective as to what they mean, and then you get back to the P word, power. If you're going to ask this of me, well, then this is how I feel, and then it becomes a movement.
It's interesting because I don't know. Go ahead,
Before
John.
we move on, I just want to ask one, and this is a serious question.
Yeah.
So you're sitting in an empty Superdome, just the players, the coaches, sideline guys, you guys. Anyamata messes up. You say something about him. He hears you because it's echoing.
Right.
He makes eye contact. What happens?
You would have to really yell because from the top down, all the way up there.
I just want to make sure.
But I will say this, to your point, you can hear when it's did that on purpose, that quiet.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear it. So if you hear any noise,
But really, like, so you criticize athletes. Right. You're a sports commentator.
Honestly, I think when you're in the moment and you're playing in action, you honestly don't hear a lot of that. Right. So, I mean, I know what you're saying, that if I just say you're a bum, if that person would hear it, there's so much talk and activity on the field that is. You would have to say it after the play.
Then he goes home, and he listens to you.
Yeah. That would be the last player, by the way, I would say that.
Gus called me a bum.
I wouldn't. He actually was one of the good ones.
No. I'm just several other players on that team. Scariest man I could picture.
Yeah.
So you call him a bum. He's not doing good. He's Lattimore. Lattimore's inconsistent. I never heard you say that, but if you did, that guy hears about it. And Lattimore's mad. What do you do, man? You got bodyguards?
No, I'm good. Because what you've learned is you can always just get a burner account and do it on Twitter. No, which it's interesting because you do see it from guys as high as Kevin Durant to the local guys. They say they don't. They absolutely do. Which is probably why one of my favorite players is CD Deuce and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And you're asking me if I need a bodyguard and stuff. I thought Alvin Kamara describing him was best this past year when he said, that guy, if you ever need to be in a fight that you want next to you, he's that guy, and he walked off. That's him. So, yeah, if I ever want to say something bad about somebody, I'm going to ask him how he feels about it, and then I'll do it.
Could you hear him, though? Could you hear some of the stuff he was saying?
Again, when it's that you could hear, and you've heard it before when you're in pregame or before kickoff and you get there, and you get in your seats at 11:15 or something, you could hear like the echo of, a chair hitting or something.
Right.
It was just odd. You can't get used to it, It's just odd. And then you get to this other aspect of it. We just concluded the Pelican season. Media hasn't ever met Stan Van Gundy face to face. We haven't seen the players this year.
Right.
We haven't been in the locker room. We've never met. And it's not just like even me, the voice of the Pelicans, Todd Graffinis, they used to go to practice. They haven't been in the facility. Like, they haven't gone in the practice facility in over a year.
Really?
Right.
I didn't know that.
And obviously, if I saw you guys more often than not, you learn body language. I know what's going to set you off. I bring up nipples. I know what's going on with you, Boston. But just already in just one conversation with us.
Right.
Well, that's lost. So you don't have that sort of, report to kind of just see how these teams are. You get a lot, trust me, just by walking in the locker room and seeing how people react. You knew something was coming when you saw Jimmy Graham literally hide in the locker room and peek and see if the media was in there. I mean, you see, oh boy, this dude's a little out there, or he ignores you. I mean, just you get a sense of feel after games. Are you bothered or not? The Pelicans blew 14 games this year with double-digit leads, 2-11 and 3 points or less decided. Well, does Zion walk in and get on his phone and not care? Does he get in and start throwing stuff? Do you sit there and in silence because doors are slamming and lockers are slamming, and you get a sense and feel of the team. You get a sense and feel of the people's personalities, and again, that's been odd because we're not doing any different than what you guys are doing. We're just observing and trying to listen to quotes and bites, using our eyes and seeing it. But it's like I said, it's been something that I've never seen or experienced. Obviously, none of us have, and everybody from every element, from the fan to the ownership group to the coaching staff to the players, I think we're all just doing it on a, I wouldn't even say a whim, just as we go along. So we don't know how it affects
everything was on the fly.
Touch and go.
Did you spend the last year sitting in front of your computer when the press conference and zooming in on it?
That's the only way you get anybody.
Okay.
Yeah. So perfect example. Today was the final day for the Pelicans, and so it was David Griffin, Stan Van Gundy, and every member of the team, one right after another, from 11 to 3 p.m.
Okay.
So they send you a link, you click on, and you get to ask questions. You record it. You can use those for sound bites and everything, and you have it. Sean Payton all last year. Saints players are made available like that. So after a game, you get a link. One's for coach, the other one's for players. So they set up just like what you guys are doing, literally just like this. You have a ring light, you have a camera. You'd be a player, I'd be a player, you'd be a player. We all take turns, 3 minutes apiece. Joe says, let's go, 4 minutes. You ask questions, you go. Colleges did that. Pro teams did that.
Well, you're doing your radio show still remote?
No, I did it where we do it. Our station's located in La Rose. I do it remotely for here. So I'm already a remote broadcast.
Okay.
We do have an office building right there off of Transcontinental, which is right by the house anyway. So, but I can do my show from, as Joe knows, I've done it here in the past. I've done it, you can do it anywhere. So, and our group that does it together, it's me and Jordan. That's it. So it's 2 people. So, and then he gave me freaking COVID because he went on a boating trip for, Memorial Day last year. So he went boating. Everybody on the boat didn't feel well, still came to work. Went to the doctors and he said, hey.
Charlie, this is another example that Joe's lowered his standards.
It's true. It's true.
He lets us in here now.
Yeah. We had the Saints Superfan podcast. YouTube channel that used to come out of here and their podcast, and they were better than we are. He's better than we are, and now I guess Joe just can't get anybody else.
And it keeps them awake at night, trust me.
Oh, we're going to do another Wednesday too?
Yeah, that's right.
Female referees. That one blonde. Hot. Necessary? That female NFL referee.
Did the Super Bowl for
blonde
the
chick.
first time.
Right. Well,
From
Very
Mississippi.
attractive woman.
She's from Mississippi.
what was interesting is
But
I remember years ago when she actually got started, like the first year she was there, she part of her training, was it West Virginia, was it even before here, but we kind of seen her go through the ranks here. Literally, she started learning and training either at training camp practices here and stuff like that, and see her move up the ranks, and now you have a handful that do it.
When I pictured a female football ref, I thought like, very short hair, shoulders like Jonathan Vilma, but this is not at all what we got. And so at first, not that I would judge, but at first I was against female referees. And now she looks a lot better than Ed Hockley. So I was thinking like maybe we should make
Hockley's got some pipes now, though.
maybe all the referees should be female referees.
Would that help? Would that help the rating?
Well, they do all kind of bitching anyway, and they do the wrong calls, so it doesn't really matter.
Every guy knows the answer to behave.
It will help the ratings. It will help the ratings. And I think it's a direction the NFL should look at. They look at all kind of other stuff now. I just want to get it out there for people to know about it. We should look at all female referees, 'Cause these dudes ain't got no nuts anyway. It takes them 20 minutes.
Sean's a part of the competition committee. If that,
We need
send him an email.
We need
See how that goes. See how that goes.
we need female referees. That's the whole fuck. It's the future.
It's the future.
Whether you guys see it or not.
Well, diversity is on top of the agenda. That is for
Seems
sure.
to be.
There you go.
The next two refs.
Dressing up
There
as
you go.
referees. There you go. We didn't have the black sunglasses with the walking stick though, so we've moved on from the 3 black mice. That's good. Yeah, that's very true. Especially considering after
Yeah.
the no call.
Yeah.
Oh,
You say it like it was one. You say it like it was one.
but
You say it like it was one. That was the big one. But there's been a lot. And I said women could do a better job than this, and here they were. All of a sudden,
that was the worst call in NFL history. And I've been watching it since 1960.
It's tough to not be able to say that. I mean, you can't not look at that objectively and say that it should have been a penalty.
I'm a Patriots fan.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm not looking at it.
No, you can help us sometimes, yeah.
I looked at
The
it.
tough
and
rule.
I was like,
I don't know where it was, but there was it was a long time ago. I want to say it was in the 80s, not positive. I can't remember the team, but they had like 2 plays after the call, and then they went and reversed the call. They reversed the call, and like people started throwing bottles, and they had to get the referees out and stop the game.
That was probably
It's an NFL game. It may have been a Cleveland game.
I lived up there and went to
Cleveland
Browns games. I can tell you, that was probably Cleveland.
So it was probably the second
Either
worst
that or
call.
Philadelphia.
It's probably the second worst call in NFL history.
It was either Cleveland or Philadelphia. That was most likely where that happened. Because both places tend to throw shit. Hey, Gus, thanks for coming by. We really enjoyed it. Now you know why our show is called "We Need Points to Be a Zero," because we ain't that good. But you certainly elevated. You elevated the program tonight, and
We got a lot from here today. I mean, something that had to do with the Patriots, I think, that you brought up. And,
Well, they suck. That's and they're cheaters.
And you have suggestions on better ratings.
Right. Janet
and
Jackson's
increased
there,
diversity.
It's a thing.
I would just phrase it a little differently.
I don't want to go out there and say I know what's going to help, but I know it's going to help. Give Sean Payton as much juicy fruit as he wants, and let's just move forward.
Right.
Let's move forward.
Charlie's an idea man.
It's,
I mean, he's an idea a minute type of guy. So, yes, if you.
Let me ask you, because you asked about the ratings and everything. Are you looking forward to this college football season, NFL season?
I'm a pro guy. Really am. I literally watch either the Saints or the Patriots. I don't watch any other team. So I mean, I used to watch football.
It's because Boston doesn't have an SEC team, Larry.
Oh, we have Boston College.
Oh yeah.
Are you excited? Are you looking
I'm
forward?
very excited. I'm very excited. I don't think LSU is going to do great this year.
Right.
It is what it is. I would rather go. I mean, Custer's last stand, man. Go out there and play the game and let them knock you down. Hopefully, some Alabama player gets a bloody nose. I don't give a shit.
Right.
Anything to ruin Nick Saban's day.
I do have good news. Announced today, within the next 2 weeks, Fenway Park will be at 100% capacity for baseball.
That's great. That's
Now,
great.
I don't know about y'all. I grew up at Fenway Park.
I get excited.
That is the mecca of baseball. And to to walk in there with 38, 36, 37,000 people in there, there is no better feeling in the world.
See, I'm
Who that?
get into the dome, right?
I got my season tickets this year.
There you go.
Gave
Now,
them up last year.
I'm excited just to kind of see it come back and just hear a crowd again.
Right.
You know?
What are your thoughts on the vaccination?
Huh?
What do you think about the vaccination?
What do you mean?
Well, the Saints say they're not going to ask for people to have a vaccination,
Right.
but I'm pretty sure Latoya is.
Well, I think, again, we were talking about how do organizations position themselves,
Right.
Right.
right? Whether it's HIPAA or whatever, I mean, can you refuse service to that? I don't know. I mean, I guess if it's traveling, you know, you can sort of do that. Is it the same as a passport or not? I could see why they felt that way this week or last week
Right,
was to come out and say they're not going to ask you to require it. Get vaccinated. I mean,
Right.
that's just me.
Oh,
I
I'm
mean,
down with it.
right. I
I'm
mean, my
vaccinated.
thing is, you
I'm
know,
just saying.
I've already had
right. I mean, look, I went through it, and then getting vaccinated, especially if it means that I can go do whatever it is I need to do,
Right.
and if that's what the standards are, or whatever, to get it in, and I mean,
I'm not an anti-vaccine guy. Like, I'm going to get vaccinated
Right.
for sure. I'm just waiting. I mean, there's no reason for me to go run up and get vaccinated. I'm not in I don't think I have any health issues
Right.
that I don't know about. I'm a young guy. I'm just not at risk. And I want to see if you grow a horn first. You know,
Right.
if you grow a horn, then I will not get vaccinated, or at least I won't get that vaccine. Like Johnson & Johnson, you get a horn?
Yeah.
I'm going Moderna. You know?
see, but then again, I don't know, career in wrestling or something. I mean, I'd be I'd be on the Tonight
could
Show.
be-
I mean, Joe could have me here on
would
Saturday.
the horn.
Imagine doing your
I'll show you
karaoke
my
on
antler when
Saturday
this is
with
over.
somebody that has the human horn, just
Hell,
walking
you'd be
around
in a
doing it.
sports center.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Him with a horn. I mean, that's beautiful.
I would call Mark
Gus.
immediately.
Thanks for coming.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Solid,
It's been a
Gus.
pleasure. We enjoyed every second of it. And you're welcome back anytime you can. Anytime you can come,
Yeah, I'm in for sure.
you got a platform. Thanks, Gus.
Take care, guys.
Good night, everybody.